Not exactly sure what we're getting into.
This is avalanche country. This massive rock slide here.
It was going okay until I landed on a sharp rock. Real muddy spots, real slippery in spots, and it looks pretty dangerous and narrow. Getting ready to set off on the Rees-Dart Track here just outside Glenorchy near Queenstown. And it starts off going through private land, and then we get back into Mount Aspiring National Park. It's about a 4 or 5 day thing up the Rees River. We're going to check out the Dart Glacier. As you might be able to tell, it's lightly drizzling, so the weather and the conditions could affect exactly what we do, because there is a stream crossing, but they have taken the bridge out for the season, so this could be interesting. Not exactly sure what we're getting into. We're the only people at the trailhead. Forded 5 rivers in the van on the way in. Hopefully they're not flooded on the way out so we don't get stuck here. But it's going to be an adventurous few days, I think.
This is avalanche country. Or I should say, yeah, this is avalanche country. Hopefully conditions do not seem right for avalanches now. But we're going to have to play it safe and keep an eye on these regions. This is where we're going here and up here. So we'll see what happens.
So this is possibly a 6 to 8 hour day to the first hut today, and we are starting at 11 o'clock in the morning. So could be an interesting day, getting there in the dark. As the sun's poking through the clouds, the sandflies are actually coming out as well. Just wanted to point out Earnslaw Burn right on the other side of this range here, and on the opposite side is the Matukatuki Valley. So Earnslaw Burn is kind of in the middle of this arc loop where you go up and the Rees-Dart loops back down the Dart River, and in the middle of that is Earnslaw Burn. So during summer, you can go all the way up Earnslaw Burn and then up and over one of these passes to loop back into the Rees-Dart Track and make for quite an epic adventure. And if you're really feeling it, you can go over the Cascade Saddle to Matukatuki Valley, though they recommend actually doing that just in one direction from Matukatuki Valley this way. I guess on the backside from this direction, it's really steep and grassy, and when that grass gets wet, it gets really slippery and dangerous. Okay, so that is something I was not anticipating. Ankle deep through a bog. Seems weird that they would have the track go through the wetlands like that. Boots are completely soaked at this point. Probably don't even need to take them off for any stream crossing. Starting to gain some elevation though. But look at that valley. So we're going up here and then over there and somewhere over there. Completely soaked. The one thing I didn't anticipate, when you take your boots off for a stream crossing, that's when the sandflies get you. So I tried a new method of just taking one boot and sock off and hopping on that one foot. I would not recommend that. It was going okay until I landed on a sharp rock, and then, well, you can imagine what happened. What's that? Oh man, come on. What I would say is, if you plan to do this track, do not plan on keeping your feet dry. We heard about the stream crossings, river crossings. We didn't hear nothing about this boggy marsh stuff. Ankle deep in the boggy marsh, might as well just wear like your water shoes and neoprene socks at this point. I mean, almost knee deep on sand at some point. So I don't know if it's this wet in summertime or if it's just because it's been raining so much. But that's why it's so marshy and boggy right now. But fun fact for you, might just want to wear your water shoes. up in the beech forest now, and yeah, I don't know how much traffic this trail gets, particularly in the winter or fall, but a big section of it was eroded down by the river. Had to get partially into the river at one point, and several down trees so far up here on the track. Pretty narrow. Probably not a good idea to be doing this like right after it's rained a whole lot, because real muddy spots, real slippery in spots, and it looks pretty dangerous and narrow. So we're just gonna have to take it real easy. So we made it to the park boundary, and it says 3 to 4 hours to the first hut. So we're on track to do it in about 8 hours and 15 minutes. Much more forest. Glad to be through that grassland and that boggy area, because I was just getting redundant, and still pretty boggy on the trail up here though. But eventually there's like 2 bridges we go over that take us over the river up in some much bigger forest now. Got this massive rock slide here. Some trees and stuff taken out recently, so you can see how just this little narrow thing. Take it slow. Good.
Good morning from Shelter Rock Hut here on the Rees-Dart Track, and we have woken up some spectacular views of these mountains. Look at these mountains all the way around the hut, and we had the hut all to ourselves last night. No one else was up here. Got a nice fire going. There was not too much wood, but enough to get a nice warm fire that kept us warm throughout the night. Beautiful sun's coming up over the ridge there. Clear blue skies, and you can still see a little bit of the moon up there. It's gonna be a great day. 4 to 6 hours to the next hut, to the Dart Hut. So should get there in the daylight today. So should be able to enjoy this beautiful scenery that we earned hiking through. About 2 hours in the dark last night. Not too bad though. Just had to take it real slow because it was real slippery.
This is the Shelter Rock Hut. There's 6 bunks in here. Wood stove, which is key. Little kitchen area. And there's 2 other bunk rooms over there, and then a wood shed, not much wood in it. So, but the water's turned off in off season, so you have to use the water tank and either filter or boil it. But we will be back here on the way back down, I think the day after tomorrow, something like that. So cool. Hopefully we have it all to ourselves. We just swept it up, left it nice and clean. That's the one thing about huts here in New Zealand. You want to clean them before you leave. You know, clean out the ashes from the fireplace and just leave it nice and tidy for the next people, which will probably be us. So an interesting thing I wanted to point out here, all these creeks, there's very little vegetation growing. So you see all these rock falls all along the valley. You'll see areas of tree, and then you'll see these little creeks. And it's kind of opposite of what you'll see, like what I've seen back home in California in high drought conditions, usually where you have consistent water flow like we have here in these creeks. You're gonna see the biggest trees in that area. Everything else will be dry, low underbrush. But here it's the opposite, because all of these creeks are avalanche paths. So what happens is, if an avalanche is coming down from the mountain, it's going to follow the path of least resistance, usually where there's already some movement, which is in these creek beds here, taking out all those trees. And so that's why you have patches of trees where the water's not flowing, and then where the water is flowing, there's no trees. And we've crossed I don't know how many avalanche paths so far. Luckily, not much of a buildup of snow yet, but I'm a little concerned the further we get up, we might have to decide to bail if it looks too sketchy. So we had seen some deer tracks in the snow, and now we see these possum tracks. And the interesting thing is the possum tracks are inside the deer tracks. So they're kind of like following along where the deer went. It's like the animal highway here. And most likely the animals made this trail long before Doc ever marked it. So as we're approaching the head of the valley here, I was getting a little concerned because on the other side looked like might be favorable avalanche conditions, but luckily the track crosses this stream here. It's kind of a big, medium-sized ravine. So as long as we're on this side of this stream, I'm not too worried about avalanches from up there. I mean, I'm still concerned, but not as concerned as if we had to cross through the path of those over there. So hopefully, I'm hoping the track the rest of the way to the saddle is on this side of this creek. So we made it to Rees Saddle. We had seen a picture from one of the rangers a few days ago, and there was a lot less snow. It's like knee to mid thigh deep on me. So now we're trying to evaluate what we're gonna do, because there possibly is some weather moving in tomorrow, rain or snow, and it's gonna make this a lot. I mean, right now, supposedly we have 3 hours left. We're halfway to the hut, but with this snow, it's gonna take a lot longer. So we'll probably end up getting there in the dark again. So now we're just trying to evaluate what we're going to do next.
Looks like that. Got a while to go.
So it looks like we made the decision. We're going to try and make it to the top of the saddle, see what views we can see, and I think we're going to turn around, go back to Shelter Rock Hut. Just I can explain all the reasonings later, but see if we make it to the top first, because still thigh high and probably an hour or more to get to the top of this in the current conditions. So after post-holing for about 15 minutes, we decided to bail on the saddle. It's just going to take too long. It's too slippery under the snow. Even though I'm thigh deep, there's like grass and stuff that's super slippery. Also, some big chunks of ice coming off this rock face here, and we're trying to not stay too close to that, but eventually those could turn into rocks as well. So just gonna bail, head back to the hut, get a fire going, and talk more later.
We were lucky enough to make it back before dark, so got to enjoy views back down the valley, which the Rees Valley, truly spectacular in winter. So we decided to bail on the saddle and the rest of our plans, And there was a couple of reasons for that, so I'm just going to walk you through them real quick. One, we didn't have any crampons, so thigh deep in that snow, and below that snow there was grass or rock that was very slippery. So even though you're like halfway wedged in the snowbank, you still could slip, and it was pretty steep. So that was the first one. The second one was, one of the main reasons we wanted to do this was to do a day trip to the Cascade Saddle where you have views of the Dart Glacier. So that is a 10-hour out and back day trip from the Dart Hut to the Cascade Saddle to see the glacier. That's 10 hours in good weather. Considering the snow is probably just as deep as the Rees Saddle or deeper, we figured that's probably going to add another 2 or 3 hours, maybe more. So with the amount of daylight we have now at the beginning of June, a 13 or 14 hour day just didn't seem like a smart idea, especially with no crampons, possibly walking back in the dark and deep snow and slippery, narrow conditions. So decided again to bail for that. Was reason number two. The third reason that actually came as an afterthought when we were up there was like, they probably don't have firewood at the Dart Hut. I mean, obviously it's not a big deal. We got layers, we got sleeping bags, but you know, it's nice when your feet have been wet all day and your socks have been wet to dry them a little bit by the fire. And I believe the Dart Hut is above the tree line. I'm pretty sure, I'm not positive on that. But if it is above the tree line, most likely there's no firewood, because these are serviced huts. So in season, Doc brings firewood up here, but now out of season, like here, all that firewood is used up, and what's left is just some dead trees that were trimmed and broken up and put in the firewood shed. A lot of the wood is wet, but up there, if we're above the tree line, again, not sure if it is above the tree line, but if it is, there's no trees to collect dead wood from. So that was kind of the third factor that we took into consideration. That also the weather possibly today or the day after tomorrow rolling in, making coming back down the saddle possibly even more dangerous. So it still was an absolutely beautiful day exploring the Rees Valley. I highly recommend you checking this out. I mean, the pictures in the summer look way easier, but I gotta say it's so much more beautiful with the snow on the mountains. But maybe a little bit earlier, maybe in May. Too much snow right now. Obviously, if you're an experienced mountaineer, go for it. We were not expecting basically mountaineering conditions once we got to that saddle. You know, should have had crampons, probably ice axe, maybe even like a rope to tether to each other. We erred on the side of safety, still had an awesome day. It's like I say to you guys all the time, the adventure is the journey, not the destination. Gonna see some of the stuff we hiked through in the dark on the way back down, and it's gonna be another beautiful day here in Rees Valley. And I'm not sure I mentioned this, but this hut is a serviced hut, so they charge $15 a night per person, and you buy these hut tickets at the dock offices. And right now, off season, there's no hut wardens here, so it's just on the honor system. You just stuff them in a box. During season, I believe they have a hut warden here. But I don't think they increase the price during season. I think that's only on the Great Walks where the prices get bumped up. So I'm pretty sure year round, $15 a night. And I gotta say, that's quite a bargain to have your own remote mountain cabin in the middle of nowhere with no one else around, huh?
Oh, so we came through this when it was getting real dark. This little rock tunnel here. This was pretty cool. car is about hour and a half, 2 hours that way. However, we're gonna set off on a side adventure here across the river, up that way to check out Kia Basin. There is another hut up there, a basic hut, and I'm getting swarmed by sandflies right now. So if you want to check out that video, it's right here when it's finished. If not, this video right here is something that YouTube thinks you'll like. In the meantime, get out there, find your adventure, and be infamous.
Infamous.